What we're going to do with your bodies today and the clients is basically what we need to determine is a pre-workout protocol that you could put on yourself firstly and foremost, so you kind of get this idea of how to maybe go through a few trigger points and why you want to do that. And then the secondary thing would be how that might look for a client and how you would scale it or change it depending on what they look like and how old they are and what their fascia is like or what their body is like and how they move, and then how it can all be empowering so you don't have to make the person feel that they're really disadvantaged or compensated. And then a final touch note would be we'll talk about recovery strategies away from the gym. And it's not that I won't encourage the rolling the roller on the client time, but maybe we would do something maybe a little bit more effective, maybe some wall rolling where they learn how to do it themselves, or maybe something a little bit deeper into the tissue. But first and foremost, in terms of releasing any part of the body, it's never about pain and it's never about speed. It's always about basically allowing or there being some penetration into tissue. And then we're always wanting to see some shear, so we're always wanting to think about actually moving layers inside the body as opposed to just crushing on the outside of the body with movement. Okay, you might want to take some notes on those points. And so, you know, not searching for pain, not looking for movement on the outside, but looking for movement on the inside would be two things to sort of envision as you're going to start doing this on your own body. And then the tool is always the last question, is what are we going to use? Are we going to use a big foam roll? Are we going to use a medicine ball? Are we going to use a little roller? Are we going to use a little ball? And it all has to do with specificity, but then it also has to do with force and time and sort of functional use. So the first thing I'm actually going to show you with the travel roller today is just a quick sequence of wall rolling, thinking about clients that are incapable of rolling their own bodies, and they shouldn't even be doing much foam rolling because they get so much pain, they get so much dysfunction from it, and they're really quite bad at it. And you would know who those people might be as your clients. So I'll show you a sequence of wall rolling, and these people, in terms of who these clients would be people that you would probably also consider using some of the different tiger tail stick type devices on. So you would basically be looking at them and thinking, okay, this person really, whenever they get down and do body rolling, I mean, it's just, it doesn't work. You know, really, if I give them a roller that is effective and small enough to get into the body, it hurts so much for them that it seems like it's a problem. And then if I give them a big roller that is sort of laying there and they're rocking all over their IT band, and you know, it probably is maybe creating too much compression on their IT band, and therefore that IT band might even get thicker because they're just basically crushing up and down the IT band, like rocking on it, and they're thinking that's a good technique. Let's just pump on these IT bands. I mean, it hurts and everyone thinks that's what we should do. Maybe it's not the best strategy. So we could talk about this, but the wall rolling stuff is what I'll start to release trigger points, is little tiny pumping actions with shear in some way. So don't just think of moving over the tissue, think of actually shearing, so sort of having compression into the roller, then moving your body one way or the other, maybe up or down slightly, and then slightly pumping. And then after you do maybe 5 seconds or so, then rotate to a slightly different angle of the muscle, and then just about 5 seconds again, and then rotate to a different angle of the muscle, and then just 5 seconds again. Okay, so now everyone's a little bit too high. So set the roller lower on the wall, get more pressure, get it into the same belly in your upper trap, feet angled away from the wall, more pressure, and then make sure you're the belly of the muscle, and then about 5 seconds on one angle, rotate to a different position. Make sure you're thinking about shearing away or down towards the floor, and you should feel maybe some, you know, referring trigger point into your skull if you get the right position. Make sure you're in the upper trap in this one. Okay? So the lower, you know, let's say demographic or clientele that this is going to be crazy. Okay? And so you don't give that to them unless you know that they are totally understanding and willing to open up their body. Because if you basically take the same upper trap move and even give them a softball and get them to go in there and try to work on this, it's going to create a 7 out of 10 pain for them, and if they're not understanding how to work with that and breathe with it and let it sort of unlock the tissue, it's just going to not be a happy experience for them. Okay?
Would you still use the ball as a pre-workout?
Yeah, so, yeah, like as long as the technique is highly,
small bounces.
yeah, little movements and sort of grinding in there a bit and little passes, and it's not like sleepy and,
just
just like that, then yeah, for sure. So just play with your own body. Try a hip release, try something in your low back, try something in your TFL against the wall. And you could do just 5 to 7 seconds again, trying to work on a trigger point area. And to be clear about what a trigger point area could be, for some people it actually could be their entire bodies. Not exaggerating, like actually their entire body. And then another person, it might be that they're so supple and so rangy that they actually don't have any perceptive zone where they can actually get a trigger point feeling. And those would be like, some brilliant yoga star that eats perfectly vegetarian and can do the splits in every direction and hang this and this, and then when they even take a super hard ball, they only find some degree of pain or trigger point in like the exact piriformis or exact TFL and infraspinatus attachment. Otherwise, they feel just loose. Okay.
So those people that are, like he talked about there, those people that are just trigger points everywhere, those guys are highly adrenergic. Okay, so they're sympathetically overcharged, and they're so either lacking hydration, overstressed, right? So those are two normal ones. Under nourished in terms of sleep, so and their body's in an inflamed, unhealthy, disease-ready state. So anytime you come across a client who literally is head to toe trigger point ridden or like a 9 out of 10 reaction kind of thing, I can assure you the most important thing you're going to do with those people is roll in and just trying to find out what's in their lives that's stressing them out and or keeping them in a sympathetic response because their body's in a disease state, in an inflamed position and willing to grow cancerous and other death type problems in their body. That's really important to understand because that's like it's common.
Yep. No, it's very critical. So when this is an explorative process with your body and everyone you're working with, and if their body lights up like a Christmas tree when they do anything on touching it, obviously there's an incredible imbalance there. And it's not for you to fix, it's just for you to modify everything and sort of set up a session that would be more fascially nice and less aggressive and more willing. Okay, so the last thing with the ball is you can actually use this as a tool on the feet, and the poster doesn't have it, but if you actually go through my normal recommended protocol for trainers to prep their own bodies, and that's what we're going to do now. So basically, this would be a quick series for yourself. If I didn't know any of your compensations, the way that I would quickly tell you okay, Adam, what should we do before training? Just broad-based, should we even spend time doing this? And it's really simple. The first thing you should always do is go through the bottom of your feet very strategically and thoroughly with a fairly hard acupressure ball, about this size. And the reason for that is all the nerve endings of all the fascial lines, well not all the fascial lines, but the predominant whole body fascial lines start or end in your feet. And if your feet are not relatively pliable and strong, and all those nerves are open and free, you will likely encounter a lot of different compensations elsewhere in all of those fascial lines or those chains of the body, unless the feet have been worked pretty hard. So I always find that the yellow ball is inadequate for my foot, it's too soft. So I require orange for sure, and more likely the red ball, and I have to go really quite hard and open up the whole plantar fascia, the whole entire bottom part of the foot. So the amount of time spent on your body doing a real hard foot rolling, if you do have a red ball, try to go much harder. If you have a yellow one, try to exchange to see someone who has a red one just to see what it feels like and have a much harder one. And then as you're doing that, you can actually do little tiny movements with your body if you're compressing a fascial line in your foot, you're actually doing it everywhere else as well. So let's just say that without even knowing it, let's say you're working on the fascia at the bottom of your foot, and if you just go into a slight little hamstring stretch, or let's say a deep posterior line stretch of some degree, you're going to actually affect that whole chain really quickly. And just by doing the feet, if we did another example of how quickly we would change our bent over position, this is something where if you really, really work the feet quite aggressively, you can radically change how your entire function is in terms of like a bent over position of your whole body, or other lines as well. You can get big changes in even the ability to side bend or move if you just basically do the feet. So the first key trigger point zone that I always recommend is consider doing something with the feet. And then the next one would be something interrelated with the hips. So from all the sitting and all the positions of stress and compression related to all the computer work, the next thing in terms of a pre-strategy would be trying to deal with a bunch of the trigger points that you're going to find in the hip flexors, the TFL, the glute medians, the piriformis, the low back, and to do so relatively efficiently or quickly. And just as a general note, you can kind of bang through these really quite efficiently. Really nice tripod position, good neutral core, supporting your body properly. Get the roller in one of those zones. You can start with, let's say, rectus femoris or hip flexor, and basically doing just more of a side-to-side type cross-fiber action, 5 to 7 seconds type thing, different bellies of the muscle, so break it up into 3 parts again. One part, then another part, then another part. And then just rotate into another one of the bellies, or if you find another zone, so maybe the next one could be tensifascial latte, TFL. And again, you could do a cross-fiber thing, you could do a little pumping thing. And if you don't get enough force or compression, then get your body up higher, lift another limb off the ground, or try to get your force more. If it's too much, then add more tripoding. And support yourself. Always make sure you're in a neutral position with your core, not sagging down like this or anything. And then about 3 passes on each zone. Go back into a glute med. You can do a quick rocking on there. Do 3 different passes, about 5 to 7 seconds each.
So rectus femoris is high thighs, generally speaking. TFL is going to be lateral to the rectus femoris, not sort of high on the hip. Okay, so here for TFL, here for rectus femoris in different positions along the way, but it's sort of a mid-belly exercise. And then what was the last one you said?
No, I was glute med, yeah, rocking through glute med.
So that's going to be more down the side of your glute, okay?
Yeah. And then, yeah, piriformis is best accessed with the roller essentially perpendicular like this to the body. And then basically pick 3 different passes of 5 to 7 seconds like this. And then in terms of low back, I always recommend very specifically to not roll people through the lumbar vertebrae, because those vertebrae do not receive compression well, even with a big roller. I don't recommend that people do this general basic neutral position rolling. I always try to get people to work on the exact same strategy of a 5 to 7 second of actually working one column of the erector spinae muscles with a strategy like this, and then rocking into quadratus lumborum and doing the same sort of strategy again, and then coming up off the roller and then going down into the other column, as opposed to going right through the spine. So it's a much, much more anatomically effective strategy. Try when you're doing the piriformis to be more notchy and right on the piriformis. Try to actually find it. So when you're in the piriformis like this, open the leg up, and then do a very, very subtle movement, and you'll find the band of it, and then as opposed to doing something like this. So don't think about, in terms of a no, what not to do, is certainly never do something like this.
It's hard.
Okay?
It's a workout.
Yeah. Well, it's a workout. It's sort of like, why, well, I mean, to be honest, so I've just done this beautiful job of unlocking a bunch of trigger points in my hips properly, and then I just did that, and this is actually irritated just from those 2 passes. It sort of feels, that wasn't nice, doesn't like that. If I wanted to unlock the different bellies of the muscle and the IT band, the best strategy would actually be something where you'd be doing more of a shear and a little
actual cross fiber work like this, or just actually shearing it and then doing a little wiggle like that. Okay? And then I come off that, and that area is going to feel lighter and improved. Okay?
So guys, one way is to open up your glutes so you can get, thank you. One of the ways you can open up your glutes and get deeper into that band of the piriformis is just to take the leg up and over. So if you just take this leg, we put it up into a glute stretch, that actually creates some opening sort of around the side of the notch. And that gets us right away, that opens up that area, allows us to get into the piriformis a little bit. So if it jumps up like that and lights you up like like a Christmas tree, as you were saying earlier, then you go back, just get into a wide stance and go back to where you were. But that opening makes a big difference. So, yeah.
So it's not good to feel pain?
The amount of pain is going to be so different in each person's body that it's basically, you're never wanting to go over 7 out of 10. And then when you see a person with any change in their face, it's too much. So if they go like that, it has to actually be relaxing so they can do nice breathing. And that's the one other point, even when you're doing any release work, is you want to really, really make sure that you're breathing calmly and there's no fight. Because as soon as you stop your nice belly breathing or you're in a stress state, the whole entire release process is interrupted and you start getting a really strong kickback from the muscle and actually not getting any release. So when it's done properly, like if everyone just comes off of what they did with their hips, stand up, see how you generally feel in your whole body, so you're going to do this and nothing feels like it's binding in there, then you turn into doing the same moves with a ball, or you can get into doing it, stuff like this, okay? So there's always a way, and then if they say, oh, this doesn't work, then you get the harder one again. Stuff like that, okay?
I have a question about symmetry.
Yep.
So say I'm looking on one side and then I go into the other side and I realize that it really doesn't need the same work, or just feels like I just go with whatever I feel.
Yeah, so this would turn into your individual screening process of your own body. If you're super asymmetric from compensation injuries, or you're like a golfer and you're always swinging one way, or you're a hockey player and always chopping the one way, or you are super right-handed and terrible with your left, something like that, then your whole body is going to be compensated asymmetrically. And if that's true, then it could be like the one infraspinatus requires constant work, and the other one doesn't require much at all. And then the strengthening program and the whole sequence of what you're doing with that person or yourself needs to be trying to make it symmetrical, relatively symmetrical. Some of the other moves, obviously, just so you have the full awareness, is you can do inner thigh in positions like this. You can do hamstrings in positions like this. And again, always think of just positioning the roller and then looking for those real quick passes to basically pump through the myofascia with shear forces, okay? And then, you can do the same sort of thing on tibialis. It's as soon as you have the technique and you understand what you're actually trying to accomplish, as long as the index of pain or the index of compression is relatively under 7 out of 10, you're going to be doing good work. And any questions? People have any? Realize that it's a well-spent 5 minutes if you unlock some trigger points, because it's going to get them moving better, it's going to get less fatigue in the tissues with the burning sensation. When people start working out and they get real incredible tightness and burning, that's the fascial system not flowing properly or not exchanging nutrients and waste properly, right? You get a person with really, really nice system, they don't have that at all, right? They can just work away and they don't have that weird, searing pain. A lot of the clients that are really out of shape will get that ongoing forever and ever, right? Let's see what else. Yeah, so 5 minutes, think about feet, think about hips, think about some of the wall rolling, little pumping actions, and all you're trying to do is to break down these adhesions, and basically there's a whole bunch of other science to why and which way to do it with the hips and the legs and so on. And the thing is probably just to hit some of these key trigger point zones. So hip flexors, TFLs, glute medius, piriformis, and then get into high quality dynamic movements and right away into prepping the body to exercise. But if you don't release some of these key trigger points,
the amount of muscle inhibition, the amount of firing imbalances that can be in place, I mean, can have people like having a disaster training session even though they execute it all and they're just basically getting super compensated. And as they get super compensated, they're actually going to start using these muscles that we're opening up right now to just like even sit or even just walk. So then they start getting like, you know, sciatica pain in the car, and they start getting low back disorder, and they start getting hip flexor problems. And it's actually because of the workouts, because they come in so locked up and they don't get at all neutral before they go, and then they're basically overloaded with lifts and sprints and all this stuff. And then you can usually talk about 6 weeks is normally the index where everything starts to fall apart, and it just has to do with overload. You get to that about that edge of time, and if the programming hasn't been relatively regenerative, they'll either take a vacation, go missing, or get injured. Oh, hurt my shoulder. Oh, hurt my back. Oh, hurt my knee. Okay, we've got to stop the sessions, we've got to pull back. And then the reverse of that is if you have a good strategy like this in place, then those clients just basically keep coming. In terms of the final points with the regeneration strategies that would be executed away from the session, those are the ones where you actually change the myofascial system in a more long-term way, because all the stuff we're doing right now is basically buffing out a trigger point and trying to trick the body, you know, in a sensor way or get some waste out of the body in a short-term strategy. To actually change the way the tissue is operating is sort of a technique like you're doing. What's your name? Jason? So Jason's laying there and he's basically finding something that's super compensated and dysfunctional, but the way he's doing it right now is more a melty, open, evening regenerative strategy. And that type of thing is something you're going to have to discover on your own at home, usually like before bed or in front of the TV, and then you basically get into being your own therapist. And all of those strategies usually focus on your most compensated zones. Most people have incredibly compensated quads, so the whole entire front side of the legs are usually locked down, and the femurs are pretty bad. And then a lot of people have really, really compensated upper shoulders and chests. And basically, those techniques are the sleepy, just laying there ones. So even on the quad, just give this a shot so you get a feeling of what it's like. Would be you would basically position the roller, let's just say generally in the quad itself, and then you just basically do breathing, like slow breathing exercises, belly breathing, while the roller's in there, and you would just do suggestion of rolling. So let's say if the roller, like I'm laying there on my stomach and the roller's like this, and all you would do is think about shearing one way or the other, and then just basically moving it very, very slowly and sort of undulating through the tissue, trying to get some of the layers to sort of move and move around like that. And you would just sort of do that for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes in an area, and then you would kind of move away somewhere else. And what would happen as you do that is you basically turn the whole thing off. It turns into a big, loose, jelly, sleepy thing, not good for exercise.
Guys, can I get everyone up to a kneeling position like I am for a second? Because I'm going to show you something, because he mentioned breathing. I'm just going to make sure you guys understand the difference between A, breathing, and B, breathing, okay? So, everyone up, kneeling position. I want you to be in position. As you look this way, I'll look that way. I want you to be able, I want you to see what happens. So,
make it a single layer roller. And if you're thinking that's too soft, then right. If that's still, then right.
So another thing too, guys, like the pumping action is awesome, but you can also create movement around it. So if I'm on my quad and I'm on my sore spot, I can actually do passes like this, right? So I can actually move the leg around the foam roller. So instead of me moving like this, I can actually just do a movement that creates extension and flexion in the muscle, or lengthening and contraction in the muscle, and I'll get the same pulling on the tissue where it's not static. The key is not static. So when I'm on my inner thigh, and I'm here, right? So I can start creating movement in my inner thigh by just moving my lower limb. So the same thing happens, right? I'm just creating a movement of knee extension and flexion in order to be able to open up that same tissue. That make sense?
Okay, so even on the calf, as we focus on that,
So
would be
yeah.
moving the ankle, and all of these muscles and all of these tissues here are doing this. Right?
So the same thing happens. So it's not passive, and you're actually creating a movement, right? Which is good.
Yeah, so yeah, just there's a wake-up call there, is when you do that, if you have enough compression on it, as compared to doing this, or again, just as a silly thing would be, you know, getting a client to do something like that. If you just get them to put that compression and then do this, as long as there's enough force there so that they understand they're trying to unlock some of those different adhesions, you're going to get a real effective change, right? So they're going to come in maybe with like a stiff ankle, and you get them to release their feet and their calves, and then their ankles are going to be way more mobile.
So another point there, I know there's some education out there. I mean, my current philosophy based on neurophysiology is that you should not be foam rolling for melting action directly after a highly metabolic, highly stimulating. Now, and you can use it. It can be somewhat effective, but if you want it to be maximally effective, you've heard Adam say it multiple times over. Late at night, in a relaxed state, in front of the TV, like get your body into a relaxed. Is your body in a relaxed state right after a workout? So it's not. Right, so that's where there are different techniques that work at different times to different degrees. And there's no such thing as this not. I believe this will work at all times, but if your body's in this state and you're trying to make it go, then it's really difficult to do. Not to say it can't be achieved, but it's going to take a long time and it's not going to be the most effective way to do it. So what you want to keep in mind is that, yes, we still want to service our clients at the end of our training hour. And yes, we do want to do some of this relaxing type massage with them, but you also want to self-direct them to do this work at home. So this is where this tool comes in handy, that they have these tools. So it's not just about you, it's about getting them into a more parasympathetic state where the tissue really can relax and start to go loose, because it can't really go relaxed and get loose right after work. It doesn't mean that it's not purposeful, but some of the education that's out there around these things will predominantly say you do it right after the work is done. And my neurophysiology brain says to me that that can't be the case, because it doesn't make any sense, because parasympathetically we're not stimulated yet. You need to get the body into a parasympathetic state for this to take hold.
Yeah, totally agree. So the last 10 minutes when you're massaging the client with the roller, maybe you are trying to get them in the parasympathetic state, which is nice. But the question is
Are you there?
Yeah, is it happening, right? If they just came off the treadmill and did a circuit of slams, and now they're laying down and their heart rate's at 121, really maybe they should be spinning on a bike, doing a light spin to keep them at like 110 heart rate, maybe sipping on a little bit of branched chains or proteins or something to facilitate better nutrition at that moment, as opposed to doing that and then you telling them that they're going to be heading home with their own roller or doing whatever, and you say, listen, you're going to tonight, you're going to unlock your feet, you're going to spend some time, we're going to work on the hips there and your back, and I want to make sure that these things are covered off, because I'm going to want to train you hard in 2 days. See you in 2 days, but you've got to do this on your own, because I can't have you coming in,
So a fluid stimulating type massage, like Emily, I saw you yesterday working your climbers, and you're moving it up and down, you're moving through different, to me, that helps them begin the process of putting them into a parasympathetic response.
Sure.
And it's fluid stimulating, being able to create light hydration of the muscle.
it's very smart.
Yeah, and it's the way to go.
Yeah.
And whether or not you knew that that was the right thing to be doing or not, in my mind, and again, everything I know may be proven wrong, given enough time, but as it stands right now, my neurophysiologist brain says the way to attack the beginning of the parasympathetic response system is to have light fluid generating processes. So light spinning on a bike at the end of a workout is always something that I've always fully believed in terms of help flushing metabolites from the body. A light massaging type action, which is a affleurage massage, is also going to be beneficial. And then thirdly to that, then that's when we get into some, after those two fluid stimulating responses, we do the balance flexibility, which is what we're going to go over a little bit later.
Yep.
And later, hours later, we get into the melting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my philosophy. Any disagreement?
No, yeah, that's the way I would agree. I would just say that